Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Tash. I am a sewing pattern designer and the owner of the sewing pattern brand NH Patterns. Today's video is going to be a sew along tutorial for the recently released Riviera trousers and shorts pattern. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to sew the shorts just because it's a little bit easier to fit in the frame when filming than the trousers. But the trousers are sewn in exactly the same way, so if you are sewing them, you can follow along with this tutorial as well. This pattern has no darts. It has front tucks that run the entire length of the leg. It has a super high waist and a wide waistband, and it also has a fly front and side seam pockets. This pattern does come with instructions on how to make a simple fabric belt in two methods, the slider method or the standard belt method, but this video is already quite long, so I decided to split the videos up and I will do a fabric belt video at a later date. It will be my next video, so hopefully it won't take too long. The skill level for this pattern is set at intermediate due to some of the skills needed, like inserting the fly front zipper, for example. However, when it was in testing, there were some kind of advanced beginners that had maybe sewn a few projects before or sewn some more simple things before, but had never sewn a tailored trouser or anything with a fly front zipper. In some cases, a couple of people had never sewn a zipper at all. They managed to complete the test and finish their garment. So if you would class yourself as kind of a beginner, advanced beginner, but not quite intermediate level yet, then I would say have a look through this video, see what you think, see if you think it's achievable for you before you buy the pattern, and then yeah, if you think it's achievable, then obviously go ahead. This pattern comes in UK sizes 4 to 32 and it's available in PDF format, projected format, and this one is also available in a printed version as well. I think that's all you need to know for now, so let's get on with it. To make both the trousers or the shorts, you will need your main fabric, some lightweight fusible interfacing, a 6 or 7 inch zipper suitable for the fly front depending on which size set you're making, and hook and bar fastenings for the waistband. You'll also need your standard tools like some scissors to cut, thread, your sewing machine and any other general sewing bits that you might like to use, like chalk and pins. You'll also need some hand sewing needles to sew on your hooks and bars. For your pattern pieces, you should have cut out a belt loop piece. I folded mine in half here, yours will be longer than this. 2 front right waistband pieces cut mirrored, 2 front left waistband pieces cut mirrored, 2 back waistband pieces on the fold, 1 shield piece, 4 pocket pieces, 2 backs and 2 fronts. You'll also have 2 belt pieces on the fold, but you can set them aside for now as I'll show you that in the next video. We have a selection of pieces in this pattern that need interfacing. The interfacing you use will be dependent on your fabric, and in some cases you might feel that you don't need it, but I'd recommend using it in most cases to stop these pieces stretching out of shape and giving you a bit more structure when you wear the final garment. It helps to make everything look a little bit neater. Apply your interfacing to your fabric with the glue dots on the interfacing facing the wrong side of the fabric. If you're not sure which side is which, you can normally feel a shiny side or rougher side with little glue dots. This side should be placed onto your fabric as the iron will melt the glue onto the fabric. Always use a pressing cloth to protect your fabric and avoid the glue and interfacing sticking to your iron. I just use a thin bit of scrap cotton fabric. Also, always make sure not to drag your iron, but instead lift it and press it as you move. This stops your interfacing moving out of place when you're applying it. Once you've applied your pieces, cut some strips just over 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch wide. Apply the interfacing to the wrong side of the fabric in between the notches on the pockets and front pieces. This will add some stability to your pocket opening. Start by marking the top and bottom of your tuck line with notches. Then fold your piece vertically with wrong sides of the fabric together, matching up your top notches and bottom notches. Press or pin this in place. If you find it easier, you could also draw your tuck lines onto the fabric with chalk or a heat dissolving pen to follow while you sew. Head over to the sewing machine and starting from your top notches, sew all the way to the bottom notches. 5mm or 3/16 of an inch away from the folded edge, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end to secure. Do this for both your front legs and then head over to the iron and press your tucks towards the side of the legs. You'll now notice we have two front pieces exactly the same, but we actually only need the fly extension to be on the left leg. Don't just cut it off the right leg though, we need a bit of seam allowance here to make this work. If you're not sure which is the left and which is the right leg, hold up the piece to your body as if you're wearing it. Make sure that the notches and circle point is marked on both of your front legs, then go back to your right leg only and draw a straight line from the notch down through your circle point, using either chalk or a heat dissolving pen. Measure 2 centimeters over from this line and draw another straight line. Then cut along this line. We'll now apply some interfacing to give some stability to this area. I haven't provided templates for this as it's easier just to apply straight to the piece than trying to cut out small fiddly bits from the interfacing. Cut a strip of interfacing 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch wide and apply this to the wrong side of your right leg. Your interfacing should only go as far as the notch on the top edge of the leg and as far down the crotch as the seam allowance extends. Then also apply interfacing to the fly extension on your left leg. Cut a rectangle of interfacing slightly bigger than the fly extension, and on the wrong side of the fabric, apply the fusible interfacing to the fly extension, making sure not to go any further over than the notch at the waist or the circle point marked on the pattern. Once you have applied the interfacing, cut the excess away. Now we need to overlock the entire fly extension and crotch edge and do the same on the right leg. You can see here that if I fold my fabric over to one side, it kind of straightens out that sharp curve. It creates a little tuck of fabric at the curve, but if you're careful, you should be able to overlock around the entire edge without this tuck being visible. You may want to disengage your overlocker knife here, as this can be a little tricky. For the right leg, we'll do the same, but where the excess seam allowance joins the crotch edge, we can create a smooth join here. It doesn't need to be a sharp corner. Before we insert the zipper, we need to sew up our crotch seam. Make sure those circle points and notches are still marked on your fabric, and if not, remark them. Place one front leg on top of the other with the right sides together. Then starting with the crotch, match up your crotch edges up to the circle point. Then match up the notches at the top edge by the fly and pin in place. I like to then push a pin through the circle on one side and out through the other, just to double check my circle points match up. The more accurate you are here, the better chance you have of a really neat fly. Once this is all secure, sew your crotch using a 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stopping when you reach the circle point. Backstitch a few times here to secure. Press your crotch seam open to the circle point, then fold your fly extension back using the notch at the top as your guide on where to fold, and press from the circle point up to the notch. Then do the same for the other side. Turn back to the right side and unfold the seam allowance on the right leg. The line we pressed here will be used as a guide on where the fly should overlap and meet the right leg. Once our zip is inserted, this is how we will want it to be. The notches at the top matching and the folded edge of the fly on the left leg meeting the pressed line on the right leg. Now take your shield piece and fold it in half vertically with the right sides facing. Sew the bottom edge with a 5mm or 3/16 of an inch seam allowance, then turn through to the right side and gently push the corner out. Match up the longer edges of the shield with wrong sides together and overlock to join. Give the shield a good press so that it's nice and flat. We'll now get on to inserting the zipper. So start with your front shorts or trousers facing you and unfold the seam allowance at the crotch seam on the right leg. Then fold your left leg out of the way with the right sides of both pieces facing. You should now have easy access to that excess seam allowance that we left on the right leg. When we do this, there are a few things to consider. Firstly, ignore the press line from the previous steps. It's not involved in this part of the process. Secondly, we are going to be sewing our zipper 1 cm away from the edge that has been overlocked. Remember when we do this that we want our stitching line to be 1 cm away from the edge, not the entire zipper. In this clip, you can see that my pins are placed 1 cm away from the edge, as this is where I'll stitch. Lastly, we want the top stopper of our zipper to be just over 1 cm down from the top raw edge, as this will leave us some seam allowance when we attach our waistband later. Place your zipper right side down onto the right side of the fabric and rearrange until it's in position. Pin in place and then change your machine foot to a one-sided zipper foot and sew alongside the zipper teeth on the side closest to the overlocked edge. Place your shield on top of your zipper, making sure that the raw edge of the shield matches up with the raw edge of the front legs and the overlocked edge matches up with the overlocked edge of the crotch. Pin in place, then basting stitch your shield to your zipper along the same seam line you just sewed. Turn your zipper back alongside the stitching so that you can see the zipper teeth and the shield nicely poking out alongside it. Then gently pull the trouser or shorts leg away from the zipper and pin in place. Then top stitch alongside the fold where the fabric meets the zipper tape, securing the shield and the crotch in place. Again, ignore that press line from before. You could use your one-sided foot for this, but it can throw off the tension a bit, so I'd recommend changing back to a standard foot. Zip up your zipper and lay your left leg over your zipper, matching up the top notches. You'll see that the fold of your fly extension matches up with that line that we pressed on the other side, and your zipper is nice and hidden behind the fly. Pin in place, then turn your entire garment to the wrong side. We'll now attach the other side of our zipper. You can see here that because we pinned our fly in place, the loose side of our zipper is placed exactly where it needs to be. Pin your shield out of the way and then pin the loose side of your zipper onto the fly extension, being careful to only pin through this one layer and not through the leg. Turn the entire garment so you only have the zipper and the fly and the rest is out of the way. Sew this side of your zipper onto your fly extension. You'll need to change your machine foot back to a one-sided foot for this step. Turn your garment back to the right side and you'll now see your zipper is all inserted. We now need to top stitch around the fly. Make sure your shield is out of the way. I unpinned mine for some bizarre reason, so I had to pin it out of the way again. Then from the right side, mark your top stitching line with chalk or a heat soluble pen, feeling the edge of the fly extension through the fabric. I would recommend drawing your line approximately 1 cm in from the edge. Unzip your zipper and pin your fly extension in place so that it keeps it stable while you're top stitching. Change your machine foot to a standard foot and follow your line to top stitch around the fly. When you get about halfway, you may find it easier to zip up your zipper and sew the rest. Towards the bottom of the top stitching, be a bit careful. You can sew over the bottom tails of your zipper, but you don't want to be sewing over the stopper or the teeth as you may snap the needle. Continue sewing all the way up to the crotch seam, making sure you don't catch your shield, then backstitch a couple of times to secure. Unpin your shield and put it back in place. You can now sew the corner of the shield to the seam allowance of the fly extension if you want to secure it. Just sew the corner though, otherwise it might make it a little bit harder to get on and off. Take one of your pocket pieces and with right sides facing, place it onto the trousers or shorts, matching the pocket notches up with the notches on the side edges of the leg. You may find you need to recut your notches if you've interfaced this area. Pin in place and then sew the pocket to the front leg only in between the two notches. Repeat this on the other side. Snip into your notches through both the side of the pocket and leg up to the new stitching line, being careful not to cut through your stitching. We can now treat the unstitched part of the pocket separately to the stitched part. Press the stitched part of your pocket away from the front leg and keep the unstitched edges of the pocket, either side of the notches, facing towards the leg. Then understitch between the notches. Fold your pocket back to the wrong side of the leg so that the understitching is now hidden from the right side. Press it in place and match up the unstitched edges of the pocket with the side edges of your leg. You'll notice it now looks like you have a cutout on the side of each leg. Give it a press, then top stitch around these cutouts to secure. I personally start at the edge where the cutout begins and stitch until I am 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch away from the cutout. Then I pivot and top stitch parallel to the edge of the pocket. Pivot again and then finish at the other side of the pocket opening. You can do whatever you like here and make it as decorative as you want. Just don't go too far away from the edge or you might find it difficult to sew the next part of the pocket. Turn your garment to the wrong side. Take another one of your pocket pieces and place it on top of the pocket that is stitched in place with right sides of the fabric facing. Pin together just the pocket pieces all the way around the curved edge, ignoring the top edge and the side. Turn it away from the rest of the shorts and sew all the way around the edge, again ignoring the top and the side edges. Repeat for the other side and then overlock both seams to neaten. Match up the top raw edge of the pockets with the top raw edge of your front legs. Pin in place, then do the same for the sides of the pockets. Stitch these in place with a 5mm or 3/16 of an inch seam allowance to secure the pockets. Head over to your back legs and overlock the crotch seams of both pieces individually. With right sides facing, pin your back pieces together along the crotch and sew together using a 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then press this seam open. Overlock the side edges of your back piece and then overlock the side edges of your front piece. When you do this, just be careful that you don't overlock too far over and close up your pockets. Place your back onto your front with right sides facing, matching up your side edges and pin in place. Then match up your front and back crotch points and pin together your inside leg. Sew all of these seams using a 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, just be careful when sewing your side seams and gently pull your pocket opening out of the way while you sew that part so you don't accidentally close up your pockets. Press your side seams open and press your inside leg seam towards the back. For the belt loops, start by overlocking one of the long edges of your belt loop piece to neaten the edge. Take the other long raw edge and fold it to the wrong side of the fabric by 1 centimetre and press in place. Then fold the overlocked edge on top of this so that the raw edge you just folded is enclosed. Make sure that the overlocked edge stops shy of the folded edge you're folding it on top of, as this will ensure the overlocking doesn't peek through to the right side. Top stitch down the full length of each side, making sure you're catching the overlocked edge as you sew. Once your belt loop piece is sewn up, cut it into 5 even pieces at 10 centimetres or 4 inches each. Once you've measured and cut one piece, you can then use this piece as a template to cut the rest. The belt piece is slightly longer than 50 centimeters or 20 inches to allow for slight inaccuracy in cutting, so please don't be concerned if you have a little bit left over. We'll now place our belt loops onto the trousers or shorts. There are no notches for this, as you can put the belt loops wherever you want them. Place them right sides down so that the raw edge meets the waist of the trousers or shorts and the belt loop extends onto the leg. Personally, I place my first two belt loops just next to the front tucks on the side closest to the side seam. You could line them up with the tucks if you wish, but I just put them to the side to avoid bulk. Next, I place two on the back at approximately the same place as the front loops. And lastly, I place the final loop at the centre back seam. Once you've got them all in place, sew them to the shorts or the trousers with a 5mm or 3/16 of an inch seam allowance. We'll now move on to the waistband. I'd recommend at this point marking in some way which is your right and which is your left, just to help if it gets a little bit confusing. You could use chalk for this, or you could just put a pin in the right side only, for example. You could also mark the top of your pieces with a notch or even draw an arrow with chalk so you're always sure that you've got them the right way up. Using a 1cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, sew your front left and front right pieces to your back piece with right sides facing, making sure you're matching up the notches to ensure you're sewing them the correct way round. Repeat this for your other waistband piece. You'll notice that your front right waistband piece is longer than your left. This is correct. You should also notice that your two waistbands will be opposites, and what I mean by this is that when you are looking at both waistband pieces with the wrong side of the waistband facing you, your left waistband piece will be on the left as you're looking at it for one of the pieces, but on the other piece your left waistband will be on the right. Press all your seams open on both of your waistband pieces. When I do this, I normally finger press first and then iron from the right side of the fabric so that I don't melt the interfacing. Unzip your zipper and take one of your waistbands. Make sure the right and left sides of the waistband match up with the right and left sides of the shorts or trousers, and pin the longer curved edge of the waistband to the waist of the shorts or trousers with right sides of the fabric facing. You want your left and right waistbands to finish 1cm over the edge of the fly and the shield. Sew to the shorts using a 1cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, trapping your belt loops in between the layers as you go. Be careful here when sewing over the zipper. If your top stopper is exactly 1cm away from the edge, you could snap your needle if you sew over it like I did. Gently press your waistband seam up towards the waistband and make sure your belt loops are facing away from the waistband and extending onto the legs. Sew your belt loops to the legs 5mm or 3/16 of an inch away from your waistband seam. This will help it to stop pulling on the legs when wearing a belt. Fold your belt loops up onto the waistband, matching up the raw edge of the belt loop with the raw edge of the waistband. Basting stitch or pin these in place. Overlock the longest curved edge of your other waistband piece. With right sides facing, pin the shorter curved edge of waistband 2 onto the shorter curved edge of the first waistband, sandwiching your belt loops in between. Sew the waistbands together along the top edge using a 1cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, match up the front shorter edges of both waistbands. Seam allowance of your first waistband folded up, and sew the two waistbands together along the front raw edge using a 1cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Trim your seam allowance about halfway and also trim your corners, being careful not to cut through the stitching like I did. Turn your waistband to the inside and gently push out the corners. Press into place, making sure the seam where the two waistband pieces join runs nicely along the top of the waistband. From the right side, pin your two waistband pieces together along the seam that joins the waistband to the rest of the garment. Your inner waistband should cover the seam allowance from your first waistband and be nice and flat on the inside. From the right side, sew along the waistband seam as close to the edge as possible. Make sure to keep the belt loops flat as you sew and sew over these as you go. Zip up your zipper and see where your waistband naturally lies, making sure everything is nice and straight. Then mark where you want to place your hook and bars. Your bars should be placed on the outer waistband on the side that has the shield. Your hook should be placed on the inside waistband on the side with the fly. I personally like to line up my bars with the zipper teeth. I normally place these first and mark the holes with a heat-soluble pen, then tape these in place so that they stay secure while I stitch. For the bars, I like to place a pin through the holes of the hooks and close up the waistband so the pin goes through to the other side of the waistband. I mark this point, then use this as a guide for my hooks. I'll then hand stitch these in place, being sure to only stitch through one layer of the waistband, not all the way through to the right side, ensuring the stitching is not visible when worn. For the hems, there is a 3.5cm seam allowance. I normally turn up by 1cm or 3/8 of an inch and press into place. Then turn up again by 2.5cm or an inch and press into place. I'll then pin it and sew the hem by hand using a blind stitch. Depending on your fabric, you may want to let your garment hang overnight before pinning, as some fabrics can drop and become uneven over time. Depending on your fabric, you may also prefer a different finishing method. I tend to machine stitch on shorts and blind hem trousers. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to see more content like this. Thanks for watching!